Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Welcome to episode number 794 and to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being here. Well, today I'm just giving you, I tried to sit down and come up with something that would put a smile on your face during this whole coronavirus, COVID-19 lockdown type deal. And so I'm sitting up here in my office, and I'm sitting here at my desk, and right in front of my mixer and my microphone and computer and all of this, trying to figure out what to do. I'm trying to figure out what to talk about. You know, I always like to recap, go back over the last 7 days of what's gone on our farm, and on these Tuesday edition episodes, give you an update of everything that's going on there. So I'm sitting here kind of pondering that and thinking about that and thinking what I should do and what I should talk about. And I hear this noise down below me. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, our house is such that we have a bonus room. Not very big. It's kind of a small bonus room over our garage. And that bonus room is my office and it is my studio. And so this is where I get to sit in front of the window at my grandpa's old desk and look out onto our pasture and see our livestock grazing and all of that type of stuff. As I work, as I talk to you, it's always really inspirational. And now I've moved because I'm filming these things, so I've moved to a different table, but I can still look out the window and see all of that, and my grandpa's desk is right over there. Well, anyway, so I'm above the garage, and now I'm going to take just a slight left turn here to preface what I'm going to talk to you about. So, when it comes to history, there are some people that could care less about history. Some people who have kind of a passing interest in history, you know, they'll watch a movie about World War II and they'll go, oh, that's interesting, I didn't know that, or something like that. And then there are people like me who can get totally lost in history and think back and just wish they could have lived in those times. And I don't know that I would want to, live when there weren't vaccinations or there weren't antibiotics or whatever, but just to experience those times and to see what it was really like. And so I'm just saying that to preface this. So we just started kidding. I've experimented with different seasons for kidding. So we're all done with calving now. And I've kidded in February before with our goats. But you know, my business with the goats is really selling for meat consumption. It has nothing to do with showing at fairs or anything like that. So there's no reason for me to kid that early. So we always try and start having goats right after we get back from spring break, because Autumn and Hattie and I generally like to take a trip for spring break and go somewhere and kind of just break out of winter during spring break. Now this year, obviously, we didn't go anywhere because of this whole COVID deal. But with that said, we're just in our due dates starting today, really. And so we actually had a set of triples yesterday, so a day early, and then we had a single today. And it's rainy, and it's still a little chilly. It's not cold like it would be in February, but it's rainy and a little chilly. And these, you know, we lose kids every year, and I would really like to minimize that. And so I've decided that when we've got brand new newborns for 3 or 4 days, we really want to get them up and going in a climate-controlled area as much as we can, at least a good sheltered area. And so we've been bringing these does who just had kids into our garage. Now, we don't have a shop or a barn yet, and those of you who've been with me for the past 5 years know that this farm has been a work in progress the entire time. And we're up and we're rolling, and we've got all the livestock, and all of that's working. But in terms of the outbuildings, we're not quite there yet. So the garage is all we've got for a large space that we can put livestock in. And you probably recall an episode a couple weeks ago, we had a calf upstairs in our bathtub trying to save that calf. The calf got pneumonia and was hypothermic and all of that. So anyway, my studio and office is right above our garage. And so I was up here and I was thinking about what to talk about on this episode, and I could hear noises coming from below my feet down in the garage. And right now we've got 4 does down there, 2 of which have had kids, and 2 are going to have kids at any point in time. And we've got a lot of rain coming in tonight. So we thought, well, let's get them in, so if they kid tonight, these kids aren't out there in the rain trying to get dried off, trying to get warmed up. So we've got all of them in there, and we do have a little shelter We've got a little house that I built for goats down where we like to kid. But now that we've increased our goat numbers, it can get really confusing for both the kids and the does if we've got everybody together once the kids really start coming. So we've got about 4 down there that are going to be kidding here soon, but they can get into shelter down there. But we wanted to separate those in half just because of that confusion factor. So we've got these other ones up here who are going to be kidding soon. So I'm sitting up in my office, and I'm thinking about what to talk about to you, and I'm hearing livestock. I'm hearing goats, and I'm hearing the kids and all of that down below me. And this is where this whole history thing comes in, right? So as I'm thinking of that, it makes me think of what raising livestock was like, in old world Europe, going back into the Middle Ages, 1200s, 1300s, on up through the 1700s, maybe the 1800s as well. And they had a structure back then. I mean, it was a house and a barn. They called it a house barn, or at least we refer to it these days as a house barn. And I'm going to read you, I looked this up, so I'm going to read you what I found on Wikipedia. I realize that this needs to be taken with a grain of salt, but it seems like pretty good information. But if you've never heard of this, or you've never seen a picture or a drawing or an illustration of a house barn, I'll read to you what it was. So it says here, house barns were built beginning in prehistoric times after people discovered that the body heat of animals helps to warm human living areas. The ancient 4-room house is an Iron Age type, highly identified with the ancient Israelites. So I guess that's a little bit before 1200, but okay. So, and then it says here, living with livestock in the combined building also allowed people to be able to prevent thieves from stealing their animals. Now, I am going to stop this definition and this quote for just a second, because this is something that it takes me to another part of my life, which is really interesting. Well, let me just preface that. It's really interesting to me. So I still teach, from my past life as a police officer, I still teach one class at community college. I'm teaching it online. It's called Introduction to Policing. And one of the things I like to talk about is a concept of crime prevention called crime prevention through environmental design. This is what I did my master's project on for my master's degree, was crime prevention through environmental design in schools. So that was my project there. And I was working as a school resource officer at a high school back then, so I was able to apply it to the school I was working at, and then did consultation with other schools as well for them to change their built environment to make it less conducive to criminal behavior. So anyway, it's a whole deal that I can geek out on pretty hard. I still really enjoy talking about this and looking at the concept and applying all of that. Well, anyway, so crime prevention through environmental design is basically defined as changing the built environment to prevent crime, to make it a less crime-conducive environment. So one of the first things you could think of that seems obvious is like the addition of lighting. Or if you've got like really overgrown hedges blocking your windows in front of your house, trimming those down. If you've got trees that are blocking the view of your front windows, trimming those up to like 6 feet so nobody can hide in the foliage, and things like that, and then it goes beyond that. It gets much more complex than that the deeper you get into it. But this is not a new concept. This is something that goes back to ancient times. So when I was, about 15 years ago, Autumn and I took a trip, and we went down to Cortez, Colorado, and then we went to Mesa Verde, which is the national park down there in the Four Corners region. And we went out and we got to walk through the cliff dwellings of the Anasazi down there. So you've probably all heard of the Anasazi. You've probably all heard of the cliff dwellings, seen pictures. Well, we got to go do that. And by the way, if you're going to go do that, they require you, or I don't know if they require you. When I went, they strongly suggested that you go to the visitor center first and crawl through these openings to make sure you can fit through these openings to get into the cliff dwellings. I blew that off when we were down there, and I almost got stuck. So if you're a larger sized person, and I don't mean heavy, I just mean a big frame, just a big person. I'm 6 foot tall and I've got a big frame. If you're going to go there, go to the visitor center and make sure that you're not going to get stuck in one of these things you got to crawl through to go to these cliff dwellings. Okay, well, anyway, so the cliff dwellings are an ancient form of crime prevention through environmental design. You build your home on the face of a cliff, and the only way to get there is down a rope ladder and then to crawl through this tiny little tunnel, and if you're an unwanted visitor, somebody on the other side can club you in the head with a rock or a club or whatever before you can get out. That's crime prevention through environmental design. They change the built environment to protect themselves from rival tribes, invaders, things like that. So that's an ancient form of crime prevention through environmental design. Well, one of the things I always teach my classes about, we call it SEPTED. One of the things I always teach my classes about SEPTED is that for ages, people in ancient homes would sleep on the second story. They would sleep up on the roof, or they'd actually build a second story. And the way to access the second story was by a ladder that went up through a hole in the middle of the ceiling or the middle of the floor, depending on if you're on the first or the second floor. And I always ask my students, can you figure out why this is considered crime prevention, or why this is considered changing the built environment to prevent? Back then, of course, it wasn't considered criminal activity, but the type of thing that we would consider criminal activity today. And it's kind of a brain teaser to figure out why people did this. Why did they sleep on the second story with a hole in the middle of the ceiling and a ladder taking them up to it? Well, the answer is, and by the way, I had to read this to figure it out. I didn't figure it out on my own. But the answer is, it was to protect them while they were asleep. And this would go in the cliff dwellings as well. You still got to go to sleep at some point, right? So while they were asleep, they would pull the ladder up to the second floor with them. So the invaders coming in, unless they brought their own ladder, they could not get up to those people. So those people at least couldn't get killed in their sleep. They'd get woken up before that happened. They'd have a chance to defend themselves. And so that is an ancient form of crime prevention through environmental design. Well, when I read this about the Housebarns, living with livestock in the combined building also allowed people to be able to prevent thieves from stealing their animals. Well, there you go. Crime prevention through environmental design. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. From my perspective, at the things I'm interested in, I thought that was pretty cool as well. And I will tell you that we obviously have livestock. So many of you listening have livestock. And then we've never been through any scenario like we're going through right now with this COVID-19 coronavirus deal, right? If you ever watched The Walking Dead, and you've looked at how people behaved, or you've just gone to the grocery store lately and looked at how people have behaved once this hit, you go, oh man, I'm glad I live on a farm and I've got livestock. If things really go bad, I've got food. And I used to think that way until I realized if things really go bad, there's 600,000 people that live just to my north in the metro area of Boise, Idaho, stretching from Boise to Meridian to Nampa to Caldwell, Idaho. And I guarantee you, if things go really, really bad, people are going to be heading out with their rifles, with their pistols, with their bow and arrows, or whatever, right out in the farm country, wherever the livestock is, because they're going to need food to eat. So we've got livestock here now, but there are going to be people coming out here in the middle of the night trying to get food. And so that is it's not as comforting as you might think if you think of food shortages or something like that. The good news is, as we're going through this and we're going through this particular event, I don't think that's a threat to us, and so I can't imagine the scenario where that could ever happen. But anyway, so I thought this was interesting because back in these times, absolutely people coming and stealing, I mean, that was their only way to eat. People come stealing your food, stealing your livestock, because they're trying to eat or sell it to get money or whatever. And so they've got the livestock in the house with them to help warm the house and to help protect against livestock being stolen. I thought that was interesting. And as I'm sitting here hearing the goats down below me, I'm thinking of me, living in the, 800 AD or something like that, and having livestock in the house bedded down below. Thinking about that. Okay, so I'll go on with this quote. So the rest of this is this definition. Housebarns were developed in Western Europe, Scandinavia, and the British Isles, and continued being built into the 19th century. The first 3 designs in the 1839 edition of an Encyclopedia of Cottage, Farm, and Villa Architecture and Furniture, wow, back to 1839, were for combined living space for the farm family and their animals. So back into the 19th century. Interesting. And then one more paragraph here. Immigrants to North America rarely built house barns. They typically divided the barn and house functions into separate buildings, although part of New England in particular is known for its connected farms. So that is interesting to me. One of these days I want to go check that out. Hattie and I have ancestors who landed in Boston in 1636. So I think that's 15 years after the Pilgrims, and then went after Boston over to Connecticut. I've been into one of the homes. I think I did an episode about that 2 years ago or a year and a half ago when I went back to Connecticut for Farm Aid, and one of the homes that was built in 1725 by my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. If you haven't heard that episode, it's an unbelievable story because I had no idea that house existed. And I bumped into the person who lived in it in a coffee shop when I stopped to ask directions. It's just an unbelievable story. I was meant to find that house. But anyway, that house had a lower area, but I don't think it was for livestock. They had built a separate barn. So all the way in 1725 there in Connecticut, they actually had built a separate barn. That basement was just a basement, just a cellar. So anyway, but somewhere in New England, these exist, but certainly in Europe. So always very interesting to me. I really enjoy our livestock. I like being around our livestock. There's something about listening to them eat or even chew their cud that just lowers my heart rate. It puts me at peace. And I'd live in a house barn. I would like to control the odors. I don't know if my wife and daughter would live with me in a house barn if we couldn't control the odors. But if we could, and I could just, grab an adult beverage, head out to the, I want to call it the garage because that's our current situation, but to the manger, and hang out with the cows, hang out with the goats, or whatever, and enjoy my adult beverage and just kind of listen to them eat, I think that'd be pretty cool. But I'm old school like that. Really old school. Really old school. Well, hey, everybody, before I move on to the next topic, I want to talk about our great sponsors, of course, Lacrosse Footwear. You can find them at lacrossefootwear.com. Done right since 1897, almost all the way back to Housebarns in New England. Done right since 1897. Lacrosse Footwear has been making quality boots for hunting, working, and tending the land for over a century. Of course, we wear the Alpha Range boots here every day on our farm. I've worn them a lot the last few days, and we've got a good rain coming in here tonight. Going to help our pasture get up and going, and so I'll definitely be in my lacrosse boots tomorrow morning as you're listening to this, out there feeding in the mud, no doubt. Ideal for chores around the house and farm. They are waterproof, comfortable, and available for both men and women. Please go on over and check them out at lacrossefootwear.com, everybody. And, of course, Powder River Livestock Handling Equipment. Man, I just can't be more proud to have been partnered with Powder River for so long now. I think we're going on 3 years. Man, they just had vision about being part of an agricultural podcast. Just so proud to have that relationship. So proud to have Powder River equipment here on our farm. Both squeeze chutes, panels, everything else we need. We know when it's time to work our cattle that we're going to run them through quality equipment. They're going to come out on the other end not injured. They're going to come out with as little stress as possible, and we're all going to be safe doing it as well. Check them out at powderriver.com and let your local farm and ranch retailer know you'd like to have Powder River out there in their yard so you can buy the best in livestock handling equipment as well. All right, well, let's talk about self-isolation for a minute, or social distancing, or whatever the world we're supposed to call it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So as I'm writing this, I am feeling really, really lucky. But with that said, as I was writing this, or kind of jotting down my thoughts for what I wanted to talk about today, I got an email from Jared Flynn. Now, if you don't know who Jared is the host of the Bulk Loads podcast, and he is one of the owners of bulkloads.com. And, of course, they're dealing with bulk freight, agricultural commodities, and shipping in the bulk freight industry. and I publish and edit their podcast for them and consult for them on their show. Well, he just sent me the audio over for next Monday's show. So as you're listening to this in, I guess, 5 more days or 6 more days, episode 90 of the Bulk Loads podcast is going to be coming out. And as I'm listening to this audio, because he told me, hey, this one's kind of a special interview, why don't you give it a listen as soon as you can? So I'm listening to this audio as I'm preparing to do the editing and the show production and all of that, and also writing down what I want to talk about on this episode to you. I'm listening to an interview with one of their clients who has come down with COVID-19, with the coronavirus. And it is a powerful interview, a very, very powerful interview. And listening to this story, I mean, I am feeling very lucky that I know at this point, I know no one who has contracted COVID-19. Now, somebody out there listening, I'm sure you're dealing with it, and man, I feel for you. I really do. I assume that everybody in my household is eventually going to get it. It sounds like that is going to happen unless somehow we can avoid it until a vaccine comes out and the vaccine actually works. So I assume we're all going to get it at some point. I feel for you after listening to this interview and hope you get better very, very soon. The gentleman who Jared is interviewing in this episode, he's in his late 50s, self-described as healthy, non-drinker, non-smoker. And I'll tell you what, as you're listening to him speak, you can hear, he doesn't have to describe to you how bad this is. You can hear it in his voice. You can hear that he's out of breath. I mean, I've never heard this gentleman speak in my life before, but I don't need to. I can tell that he is struggling against this virus. And as he's describing what he's gone through, he's on the mend. He's on the comeback. He said he's getting better every single day. And he contracted this at I think it was a baptism, if I remember right. They were at church, and there was an older gentleman up front who was coughing. He was ill but wanted to be there at the baptism to support the family in their church family. And he ended up passing away about a week after that baptism from COVID-19. That gentleman did, and that is who Jared's guest contracted this from. It's all in episode 90, which will be out this coming Monday of the Bulk Loads podcast. So as I was thinking, because I wanted to talk about the social distancing or whatever you want to call it, I wanted to talk about it in this episode. I don't want to ignore it or act like it's not there. So as I was thinking about what to talk about, I was kind of preparing to be humorous and lighthearted about it, and about having both my wife and daughter home full time now, and my wife working from home, and my daughter's nightmares about being homeschooled by me coming true. But I'm not going to do that now. After hearing this interview, you know, we've been paying attention. We've been doing what we're supposed to do to be good citizens and all of that. But I don't think I've heard some interviews with people who were recovered. I haven't heard an interview like this that Jared did with a gentleman who was coming out of it, getting better, but still in the midst of it. Like you could still hear the impact it was having on his body. And I will say, I mean, it is amazing how we have gone, you know, back to this self-isolation deal. It is amazing how we have gone from being so busy as a family, the stage of life with a 13-year-old daughter, to having nothing to do. It's kind of mind-blowing. We have no 4-H meetings, no softball practice, no softball tournaments, which we're supposed to be in the midst of right now, no school, no work for Autumn, no orchestra concerts for Hattie, no going out to dinner, no movies. I mean, there's nothing. There is nothing. And like I said, we're right on board, participating and doing what we can to be good citizens. But it is really, really strange. And I will tell you, I've always been thankful to have a farm ever since we bought this place, since day one. I can remember I was working night shift as a police officer when we bought this place, and it was August, so it was warm out. And so on my days off, you know, I was up till 4 or 5 in the morning because my sleep schedule was all messed up. And I can remember just standing in the garage at this place looking out at acres and acres of weeds on a warm evening at 3 in the morning. And inviting my buddies over who were on their days off, and they're working night shift too, and just kind of hanging out and enjoying a cold a cold adult beverage, looking up at the stars and enjoying the quiet of the wide open spaces. I've always been thankful to have a farm, but I am extra thankful to have one during this shutdown. I will tell you. And for those of you who do at this point, I know you know what I'm talking about. But just being able to get outside, to work on projects, to watch the livestock, just walk around is really needed, and it is very, very welcome. To have this land that we're stewards of, right? But one of the benefits of being stewards of land like this is that we get to enjoy it. Man, right now, you know, compared to so many of my friends who are in apartments or in houses with really small backyards, it is very, very nice. I'm very thankful for that right now. So we hope you're all getting through this very, very well. And I will tell you, one bright spot is that it appears that agriculture is remaining relatively strong. Again, you know, you don't know what might happen with that supply chain, and so that's something we've got to see how that comes up, especially when it's time to start harvesting. Don't know what's going to happen with labor when people are relying on immigrant labor coming in and that being slowed down. But as of right now, ag looks pretty strong from everything that I'm seeing. I was looking at the stock market today. A lot of the big ag stocks were up. So a lot of things were up today, I guess, but ag seems to be doing well. And so, you know, I'm thankful for that ag is looking relatively strong. But then again, what choice do we have? Honestly, what choice do we have? Can you imagine the long-term effects if ag said, COVID is out there, and so we've got to self-isolate, and so we're not going to plant? Certainly, the effects of we're not going to feed would be horrendous. We wouldn't do that. But imagine if we said we weren't going to plant, we weren't going to engage, and food production just came to a halt in this country for a year. Because you got a narrow window to get it started and to get it going, and then it's, you know, it doesn't matter if you change your mind 3 months later. I mean, there's no reason to imagine it because we would never do it. You can't do it. You can't, and we wouldn't. But I will tell you, it is already strange to walk into a grocery store and to see empty shelves. It blows my mind. I've never seen it my whole life. But here in America, here in the United States, at least I walk in with the confidence in my mind of I'll be seeing these shelves stocked full here in the very, very near future. But man, can you imagine if that was not going to happen? Well, with my newfound free time and everybody, I've tried to figure out what I can do with you as my audience to get to kind of do something cool together to help you get through this self-isolation, especially those of you who are still in the cubicle. Obviously not now, you're probably sent home, but you're still in the city and you're dreaming of living out in the country and having this lifestyle, but you're stuck for now. I wanted to do something especially for those of you who are in that situation, but really for all of you, a way for all of us to connect during this COVID-19 social isolation type deal. I think it's social distancing, right? Something like that I'm supposed to say. Anyway, so here's what I came up with. With my newfound free time, I have been trying to do something better than just watching television or watching the news or something like that. And so one thing I've been doing is kind of diving deep into music. I've always been really into music, not as much as some people, but definitely a lot for me. And I'm enjoying getting back into that. So if you can remember way back into the 80s, like the early 80s, 1981, 1982, there was an ad for Maxell cassette tapes. Now, those of you who are younger, you're going to go, cassette tape? What's that? What's that? Well, when I was a kid, I would buy a record on vinyl, and I would immediately record it to a cassette tape, and then I would listen to that music over and over and over again on the cassette tape, and then preserve the record. And then when the cassette tape wore out, I would record it to a new cassette tape, so the audio quality would be good, and I would listen to it over and over and over, and I had cassettes everywhere. Well, the only cassette, I got this from a friend of mine's dad, the only cassette I would record onto was Maxell. They were just the best back then. Now, I will tell you, occasionally I would record on a Memorex. Those were very good as well, but I tried to always get Maxell, but they were high-end, so they were more expensive, and money was a premium for me back in those days. Not that it isn't now, but man, as a 11-year-old trying to buy cassettes, yeah, That was a big deal. So I would try to always record on a Maxell. Well, those of you who can remember, back in the 1980s, they had the coolest poster and commercial for selling blank cassette tapes ever. And there was just a guy sitting in like a leather chair facing a speaker, and the music is playing so loud out of the speaker that his hair is blowing back, the scarf he's wearing is blowing back, and the lampshade on the lamp next to him in this big empty room is tilted backwards because of the wind coming out of the speaker. And so I'm just trying to be that guy as I'm diving deep into music. I'm trying to be that guy just sitting there in that chair with the music blowing my hair and my scarf back. And that would be, of course, if I had hair and if I had a scarf. Neither of which do I have, but you get the point. I'm trying to have the music blow my trucker cap off. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. So I thought, well, why don't I share this with all of you? So here's the deal. Here's how we can share music together, and I would really love to hear from you on this. Here's how we do it. First thing you have to do is you have to go either onto your smartphone or onto your computer and open a Spotify account. Spotify, Spotify. Now, you can do this for free, or you can get a premium account. I did it for free for, I don't know, a year or something like that, and I actually got the premium account. And what we're able to do today with music, like through something like Spotify, compared to that 11-year-old back in 1984 recording things onto Maxell cassette tapes, is unbelievable what we can do now. So do yourself a favor. Sign up for a free account if you're hesitant about getting a premium account on Spotify. Do this for free. And then I'm putting a link up. I've got it on our Facebook page, and I'm going to put it in the show notes for today's episode at offincome.com. And this is episode number 794. I'm going to put that link up. And if you're following me on LinkedIn, I'll put the link up there as well. I'll put it on Twitter too. I think I can do that as well. So I'll put it on Twitter as well. But I'm going to put a link up, and this is to a playlist of music that I have put together to share with all of you. Now, I like a lot of music. I love Merle Haggard. I love Willie Nelson. I love Van Halen. And none of the three of them are on this playlist. And the only reason for that is I tried to go deep. I tried to find stuff that not everybody knew, maybe stuff that I have somehow stumbled across and I really like to share with all of you, maybe something you've never heard before. That's kind of the idea here, but you can share whatever you want on there. But if you go to that link, once you open your Spotify account, whether or not you're doing the free or the paid for account, then you can listen to that playlist that I've put together for you. Listen to it on random, because there's a few artists, like Ryan Bingham is one of the artists. I think I've got 4 of his songs on there. I really like Ryan Bingham. And so I don't want you to hear 4 Ryan Bingham songs in a row. So hit shuffle or random play or whatever on there, so it mixes it up for you. But you can listen to all this music that I've put on there that I would like to share with you. But here is the really cool part. Once you follow the link, because you have to have the link to be able to do this, but once you follow the link, then not only can you listen to everything that I put on there, but you can add your own songs. So you can put songs on the playlist and be like, hey, Matt, you should check this song out, and then I can listen to it. Or anybody else who has clicked through the link and is listening to this, they can check out what you've put on there as well. So here's what you would do. If you're doing that, let's say you've got a song you want to put on there, okay? So we'll say it's Beast of Burden by the Rolling Stones. I don't know why that one comes to mind. Maybe it's because I was talking about having Livestock down below me. I don't know. So let's say it's Beast of Burden by the Rolling Stones. So what you would do if you wanted to put that on this playlist is you would select that song on Spotify. You would start listening to it, and then it would show you a track. It would show you the time that it was playing and the title and maybe the album. I can't remember exactly. And then over to the right on that track, there's 3 little dots, and you'd click on those 3 little dots, either on your phone or on the computer, and then that's going to bring up a pop-up menu. And on that pop-up menu somewhere, it's going to say add to playlist, share to playlist, or add to playlist, or something like that. But playlist will be in the term. You will select that, then it's going to have you choose what playlist you want to add it to. And I titled this playlist Off Farm Income Music. You're already going to have access. It's already going to pop up because you've already followed that playlist. and then you can add that song onto the off-farm income music playlist, and then everybody else can check out what it is you like. All right, very cool. Now, I like music for the message it's got in there. I like lyrics, and so occasionally there is a swear word in some lyrics, even some songs I put on there. I can think of one right now for sure that actually has the F word in it, and I think I can think of two. I think they're both by the same artist. I think I just mentioned them a minute ago. But, you know, it's not that I'm into that. I'm not into profanity in music. But as I listen to the lyrics and how powerful the lyrics are, then I go, well, if he pulled that out, would it be as powerful? So let's do this, everybody. Don't throw, like, vulgar, horrible stuff up there, right? About, you know, just don't. I'm just going to get rid of it if you do. Don't throw horrible, vulgar stuff up there. But if it's got a swear word in it because it fits into the song or the passion of the song, I get it. And if that offends you, if that pops on, just skip that song. Just fast forward right past it. But yeah, share some music on there. I think that'd be a lot of fun to hear what else all of you are into. And by the way, I would love to learn about some awesome new bands, whether it's, you know, like Texas country, independent folk, or rock, or anything like that. And I think it would be a lot of fun. So please do that. Follow that link. It's on the show notes. It'll be on the Facebook page. It'll be on Twitter and on LinkedIn as well. And again, I hope you'll add some music and then come back right here on the Facebook page or Twitter or whatever and make an announcement on my Twitter page or on Facebook and just say, hey, we put this song up here. Hope you like it. Let me know what you think. I would love that. To me, this is a really cool way for us to connect and give something to each other during this shutdown. So to me, it seems like a fun way for all of us to connect during the lockdown. And side benefit for me, it satisfies my lifelong desire of being a very cool DJ like the one on WKRP in Cincinnati, or the two in WKRP in Cincinnati. So, yeah, I'm dating myself today. A lot of 80s references in this episode, but that's okay. I enjoyed my childhood. So, everybody, yeah, please do that. Share your music with me. I want to know what you're listening to, and I want to discover new stuff. Can't wait. The playlist is called Off-Farm Income Music. The link will be where you can find it. And just shoot me an email if you can't find it. I'm happy to walk you through it. But I would love to hear what you are into, everybody. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining me here for this episode. And as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.